Hello and welcome to another episode of Japan at War. After the taking of Pyongyang, Hideyoshi began to look at the results of his naval campaign, and he wasn't happy. They kept losing at sea. For his invasion of China, he would need to be able to get supplies and reinforcements to his men stationed in Pyongyang. This required him to gain access into the Yellow Sea, something that, so far, they had been very unsuccessful at doing. Hideyoshi also knew that an army marched and fought on its stomach, meaning if he could not supply his forces with food, they wouldn't be able to fight very well, or even at all. He had maps brought in of Korea and studied it carefully. The Jeolla Province was famous for how much rice it grew. If he could capture that, it would be even easier to supply his forces with food. On top of that, the Korean Navy that had caused his naval commanders so much trouble, Yi Sun-shin, was also suspected of being harbored in that area. Taking the province would allow them to attack the Korean Navy in their harbor by land. With all this in mind, Toyotomi Hideyoshi sent out an order to the commanders in Seoul to take that region. Kobayakawa Takakage would be the one to answer the call, and traveled southwest through the Jeolla Province in mid to late August. To take the province, the Japanese forces would have to take Jeonju, attacking from Gyeongsan country, which they had actually already taken in July. They had two paths that they could take. One would lead them to Ungchi, the other would take them to Ichi. Kobayakawa decided to split up his forces and attack both at the same time. On either the 8th or 14th, depending on what source you look at, the Japanese launched a large attack on Ungchi Pass. Jeolla Governor Yi Guang, before the attack, ordered Huang Jin to defend Namwon at the border, and righteous army commander Huang Bak to assist the defenders, Jeongdam and Yi Boknam, at Ungchi Pass. I should point out for anyone not familiar with the term righteous army that this meant that it was an informal civilian militia. The soldiers, led by Yi Boknam, managed to defend against the Japanese, who launched their first attack at daybreak. The battle lasted until sunset. The Korean soldiers had completely ran out of arrows by then and were exhausted. Knowing the situation had, completely turned against them, Yi Boknam and Huang Bak had their troops retreat to Andaeguan. Most of the soldiers led by Jeongdam, including he himself, had died in the battle. Moved by the bravery of the Korean defending soldiers, the Japanese are said to have buried their bodies out of respect. The Japanese then moved on to Andaeguan, but were defeated by Huang Jin. The Japanese then spent the next several days near Jinan looting the villages for supplies. They regrouped and attacked Jinsan and Ichi Pass, but were defeated once again by Huang Jin and now Guan Yul. With the tide of battle turning against them, Kobayakawa decided that they should fall back to Gyeongsan. Righteous Army Commander Ko Kyung-myung, who had been organizing a civilian militia force to attack Seoul, heard about the battles in Jeolla Province and decided to reroute his forces to attack the Japanese there. As that was his home province, and he felt he would be able to trap them and destroy them. Their attack on the city had mixed results. At first, most of his men had been pushed back, but some of them actually managed to get over the outer walls and light some of the buildings on fire before they too were then pushed back. On the second day of fighting, the Japanese attacked the Koreans out in the open. Most of the militia retreated, except Ko, who was killed by the approaching spearmen. 2 of his sons also died, but one of his sons, Cheong-hu, survived. Kobayakawa Takakage then withdrew his forces and attacked Jeonju, but was defeated, and then withdrew from the area entirely. Okay, I would like to discuss something with you, the audience. Everything that I told you is based on multiple sources, ranging from Wikipedia to a site called the Encyclopedia of Jinan. So I cannot verify that these details are 100% accurate. I haven't been able to find a lot of details, and most of these battles seem to have, they were back and forth skirmishes. Unfortunately, when you look up wars like the Imjin War, in depth, you're bound to run into this problem. But what I do know is this. These battles were incredibly hard fought by both sides and were extremely important to Korea being able to hold on. Had they not, it's very possible that the Japanese could have attacked Yi Sun-shin's ports by land, which would have severely damaged his ability to attack the Japanese supply lines, or may have even ended his attacks entirely. On top of that, with the amount of food that the province provided, the Japanese would have been able to, they would have been very well fed and would have made it even harder to dislodge the Japanese. Had the Koreans not won, this war would have been very different. Of course, this is where we will leave you. History obscured, and yet it was so crucial for this nation's survival. See you next time.